You walk into a room and immediately sense people pulling away. Is it your imagination? Or is something about your behavior creating an invisible wall? Today's video identifies the 8 specific habits that might be causing this reaction. Plus, how to recognize when the opposite is happening and someone's actually trying to get closer to you. Have you ever felt someone pull away from you, but you couldn't figure out why? You didn't say anything offensive. You were being nice, and yet somehow the connection just wasn't happening. The truth is, we often create invisible barriers without realizing it. While we might blame circumstances or other people for our social struggles, research suggests our own subtle behaviors might actually be the culprit. One surprising connection killer is being excessively nice. A fascinating study from Washington State University found that people actually tend to avoid working with individuals who appear overly altruistic. This happens because extreme selflessness can trigger feelings of inadequacy in others or raise suspicions about hidden motives. That perfect image you're trying to project might actually be pushing people away. Just as too much niceness can backfire, dominating conversations creates its own set of challenges. Research published in the Journal of Experimental Social Psychology shows that when one person dominates by only asking questions without sharing anything about themselves, it creates discomfort and often leads to dislike. A genuine connection requires reciprocity, giving and taking in equal measure. Your emotional authenticity plays a crucial role too. When you hide your true feelings, people can sense something's off, even if they can't quite name it. Studies confirm that others respond more positively to genuine emotional expressions rather than tightly controlled feelings. Similarly, maintaining proper social pacing is another subtle skill many overlook. Susan Spencer's research at Illinois State University reveals that disclosing deeply personal information too early violates unspoken social contracts. While sharing hobbies works well initially, jumping straight to intimate details signals poor awareness of boundaries. How you express feelings toward others matters significantly too. A 2009 study from Canadian universities discovered the reciprocity of liking effect. When we believe someone likes us, we naturally tend to like them back. By appearing cold or disinterested, you're shutting down this natural social dynamic before it can develop. Speaking of expressing feelings, there's a fascinating disconnect happening right under our noses, a secret language spoken in whispers rather than shouts. Have you ever had a woman who seemed friendly, but you couldn't tell if she was interested romantically or just being nice? You're not alone. Studies from the University of Kansas found that men typically identify just 36% of women's flirtation signals correctly. This means nearly 2/3 of the time, the message she's trying to send gets lost in translation, creating countless missed connections. This silent language of attraction is more complex than you might think. Women frequently communicate interest through subtle behavioral cues that don't require explicit verbal declarations. Why? According to social psychologists, this approach allows women to express interest while maintaining plausible deniability if the feelings aren't reciprocated. Have you ever wondered if that casual touch meant more than just politeness? Physical touch is one of the clearest signals. When she deliberately touches your arm during conversation or finds reasons for incidental contact, she's crossing an invisible boundary. Research from the Touch Research Institute suggests these innocent touches are calculated decisions, not accidental movements. Her body orientation reveals volumes too. Notice which way her feet are pointing during group conversations. Psychologists have found they often point toward the person of interest, even when the upper body appears casually oriented. Similarly, if she unconsciously mirrors your gestures, posture changes, or speaking pace, that's her brain creating nonverbal harmony. The questions she asks aren't random either. When she inquires about your future plans, core values, or relationship history. She's conducting compatibility research. According to relationship experts, these screening questions help her evaluate long-term potential without showing her cards completely. Watch for her creating situations where you can be alone, suggesting coffee instead of group drinks, or finding reasons to separate from friends momentarily indicates she's seeking deeper connection. This pattern of escalating privacy is particularly revealing. Her social circle provides crucial clues too. If her friends seem to know who you are before being introduced, or exchange knowing glances when you appear, it's because they've heard about you. Research on friendship dynamics shows that women typically discuss romantic interests with their inner circle, making her friends ambassadors of her interest. Now, let's flip the script. Ever noticed how men communicate interest in ways that are often mistaken for simple courtesy or friendship? While women's signals tend to be subtle, men's nonverbal cues can be equally easy to miss, especially when they're trying to protect themselves from rejection. Think about the guy who always manages to sit next to you at group events. According to behavior analysts, this strategic positioning isn't random. It's what psychologists call proximity-seeking behavior. Men create opportunities for closeness because physical proximity feels like a safer first step than verbal declarations of interest. Pay attention to those protective gestures that seem small but speak volumes. When he consistently positions himself between you and traffic while walking, offers his jacket without being asked, or texts to make sure you got home safely, these aren't just polite actions. Evolutionary psychologists point to these behaviors as hardwired protective instincts that activate specifically towards someone a man values beyond friendship. His memory suddenly becomes exceptional, but only for details about you. Remember when you mentioned your favorite obscure band 3 conversations ago? He not only remembers, but brings up their new album the next time you meet. Dr. Helen Fisher's research shows that when romantically interested, the male brain becomes selectively attentive, creating stronger neural connections to information about potential partners. His friends are giving you away too. Notice how they either fall awkwardly silent when you approach, suddenly find excuses to leave you two alone, or start acting overly friendly. Studies on male friendship dynamics reveal that unlike women's circles, men rarely discuss romantic interests explicitly, but their behavior changes noticeably when they know their friend is interested in someone. Watch for grooming upgrades that coincide with seeing you. New haircuts, that suddenly improved wardrobe, or the cologne he didn't wear before. These appearance investments aren't coincidental. Research indicates men unconsciously enhance their appearance specifically for potential romantic partners, often without directly acknowledging why. The journey to connection begins with breaking down walls and building bridges between people. Ultimately, connection is about awareness, both of yourself and others. The gap between your intention and others' perception is where most misunderstandings take root. As research shows, understanding your own behaviors and others' reactions can dramatically improve relationship outcomes. The real power comes when you recognize these patterns, like tuning a musical instrument to create harmony. Paying attention to subtle cues allows you to consciously choose responses that build bridges rather than walls. Meaningful connections happen when you're tuned into both sides, aware of how you might be pushing people away while recognizing when someone is reaching out. What small step can you take today to transform your interactions into genuine connections? Because awareness isn't just the first step, it's the foundation everything else is built upon.